Hello! Welcome to my presentation. It's titled 12 Days of Costa Rican Sunshine, and it's about a course that I took at CU Denver this past Maymester, Sustainable Development and Adaptive Management. So first off, who am I? Who is this voice that's talking to you through the screen? My name's Jordan. I'm a rising junior at CU Denver, and I'm a biology major, environmental science minor, and then these are just some personal traits about me. I'm a nature lover, adventure seeker, and photography semi-taker. You'll see that throughout this presentation. Here's some photos of myself. And part of the reason why I chose to go to Costa Rica, is because I was born in Boston but raised in Colorado. So having those two realms in my life, the coastal and the mountains, they've fostered a deep passion and love for all sorts of nature. And I figured what better way to appreciate nature and the amazing species of plants, wildlife, insects within them than to travel to a country who is only 0.3% of the world's land, yet contains 6% of the world's species. And the country that I'm talking about is Costa Rica. So I thought that was a perfect way to explore the biodiversity that this world has to offer. So this here's our crew. I'll go from left to right. In the top left over here, this is Eric. He got his major in environmental science, and he also just graduated with an environmental science master's. Below him is Sarah. She's an environmental science major with a GIS certificate. Then there's Dr. Moreno in the back. There's Laura in the front. Nicole back here. Lizzie and Eric. All of these people have something to do with environmental science. There's me in the corner down here. This group was fantastic. It was a great group to travel with just because of the diversity of the entire group, not only in thoughts, but in majors and tracks. I myself am a biology major, as I mentioned, but Laura, this other girl, she is a psychology major, and Lizzie right here is a Spanish major. So there definitely were some not ordinary environmental science folks within this group, and I thought that was really, really cool to see everyone's different perspectives based on that. So upon arrival to Costa Rica, our first real day, not travel day, we went to an ecotourism park called La Paz. And it's actually La Paz Waterfall Park because they contain 3 different waterfalls that are extremely beautiful, all of them. One of which you can see on the left. This was an incredible park. It was built for sort of ecotourism. It was more of a zoo or a sanctuary for animals, yet each enclosure was built within the landscape. So it was meant to not tarnish or take away from the beauty of the natural world that was surrounding us in this place, but to integrate it into the landscape. I thought that was a really interesting method of management that this company decided to do when they founded the park. All revenue brought into this park cycled back through and is used to maintain and adapt and manage this area effectively so that it can be sustained for long periods of time and not impact the environment. You can see a beautiful macaw in the right. There are actually 2 macaws, but you mainly see the red macaw, which is a beautiful bird. Another really cool thing about La Paz was they had a lot of cultural involvement, which I thought was incredible. On the top left, you see an ox cart, a traditional ox cart, and those have been used since the 19th century. They were traditionally used to cart goods between places of long distances, and the exportation of those goods, it was mainly revolved around coffee, which is the country's main export even today, or one of them at least, along with pineapple and banana. In the bottom left, that's a picture of a kitchen table. So also in La Paz, there was a cultural house, a typical style colonial house, which was incredible to look at because it's really important to look at the roots of an area, I think, to see where everything came from, see their heritage, see how the people used to live and still do live. And that was a really cool thing that La Paz incorporated nicely. Here are just two more of the animals that we saw at La Paz. There's a jaguar and then a tree frog, just a typical tree frog. So in Costa Rica, it's not known how many jaguars there are specifically, but in the world, it's predicted that there are only 15,000 left. So Costa Rica is really trying to help save these species by keeping them in sort of captivity in sanctuary so that they can rebreed them and put them back out in the wild. So after going to La Paz, we drove to La Selva, which is a biological research station in the town of Sarapiquí. It was established in 1968 officially, before it was a sustainable farm that was owned originally by Leslie Holdridge. And Leslie Holdridge was a doctor. He had his PhD, and he distinguished the term life sciences and life zones that we now see in many biological textbooks. On our left, you can see the great bridge that takes you from the main area of the biological research station to everywhere else in the land. And there's a lot of places in there. It's 16,000 hectares, or 1,600 hectares, sorry, pardon me, of well-preserved old-growth forest. And 1 hectare is equal to about 3 acres. So that's a lot of land. And within that land, La Selva has 2,077 plant species, 125 mammal species, which 72 of those, more than half, are bats. They have 470 bird species, 48 amphibian species, 87 reptile species, and 45 fish species, which it's an incredible, incredible amount of animals and species in general. We also saw a lot of insects. This was really quite terrifying, and it piqued my interest a lot. On the bottom, that's the wandering spider. It looks kind of like a wolf spider that you see in Colorado, but it's bigger, it's hairy, it can jump, and it's venomous, which is, no thank you. There were also millipedes, as you can see in the top left. At night, they set up these 2 lamps. One was a white lamp, and then one was a UV lamp. And the purpose of that was seeing which bugs it would attract. And it's actually really interesting to see which ones they do attract. More moths were attracted to the UV light as opposed to the white light, which attracted more beetles and things like that. So after La Selva, we traveled to La Fortuna to see the Arenal volcano. And this is the most active volcano in Costa Rica. It was active with lava flow from the original eruption in 1968 up until 1973. And it's still active today, but we just don't see lava flow. This is a really important part of Costa Rica because it supplies 12% of Costa Rica's hydroelectric energy, which a lot of that energy comes from geothermal, under the ground, or wind-powered also on the other side of the volcano. So here was a tour that we took. On the left, you can see a palm tree. This is actually what's used to create hearts of palm, which I had no idea about. This tree is probably 200 feet tall. So it's incredible that a tree like that can grow, and then we just harvest the top of it just for the hearts of palm. And then after that, the tree's life is done. So it's interesting how much work it takes to create these things that we just consume as if they're nothing. There's also a waterfall in the middle that was really, really beautiful with the moss and an old growth tree to the right. This was a poisonous caterpillar, and we did a hanging bridge tour at Arenal. And it was basically 3 large bridges that were suspended upwards of 100 and even 200 feet sometimes, which is incredibly high. But you don't feel like you're that high off the ground because most of the trees, their canopy ends at about 100 feet. So it's not, it's deceiving, absolutely. After Arenal, we went to Don Juan's farm. This was an incredible experience. I've never experienced anything like this in my entire life. Um, Senor Don Juan, he is a man who he was originally involved in education for many decades before he started farming. He was a primary school teacher and then graduated to an administrator position within the school system. And sometime in his midlife, he decided to divert his teaching to a different method and teach people about food and where their food comes from, how important it is to know where your food is sourced. Um, so now he runs an organic farm that produces only organic products, and they really aim for sustainable development to eventually become a truly green farm. So on this farm, they had everything. They had fruit, vegetables, herbs, animals, livestock of other sorts. Um, they had it all. And we actually were given a meal on the bottom right that was made primarily of ingredients from the farm. It was incredible. There was tilapia from the pond outside. There were plantains. There was a jackfruit dish of some sort. There were cassava, also known as yuca chips. Um, it was an amazing experience. They also have cows on the farm for sour cream and cheese making that they use the milk for. Here's just one of the farmers holding up a vegetable that we saw. And then on the right is a machine that makes sugarcane juice. Here's the group again with Don Juan in the middle right here. An amazing man. Next, we traveled to Brasilito, which was on the Caribbean side of, or sorry, the Pacific side of the coast, to look at coastal development. So this was really interesting that a lot of the country is being developed on the coast and developed heavily. You see a lot of disappearance of authentic, locally owned businesses and hotels, and they're being replaced with large corporate organizations that can buy out the land as if it's nothing. And this is really unfortunate because not only does it take away cultural importance and history that's been there for a long time, but now these families are running out of money and they're being bought out for a one-time thing, but that money will eventually run out. They now no longer have a revenue of income. So that's a downside to coastal development. Our last and final stop was Monte Alto before going back to San Juan. This was another research station of sorts, and it was located right in the jungle. This was incredible. You could go to bed to the sound of tree frogs and wake up at 5 in the morning to the sound of howler monkeys right outside, which here's a picture of one on the left. It's a baby monkey riding the back of a mother monkey. And then on the left is the type of bed that we had to sleep in because it was an open platform style. This was an amazing research station that's doing incredible work also, as well as La Selva, or similar to. They're working on developing a lot of farmlands and turning it back into new growth forest and trying to rebuild that forest, reforestation of the area. And it's actually been extremely successful. It's still a mission that the community itself is working on. And here's a Hercules beetle that we saw at night. The bugs here were incredible also. Lastly, here's another picture of our group with Hernan in the back, who was our awesome bus driver. It was an incredible experience, and I seriously cannot express the gratitude that I have for this program, for the people, for their passion for the environment. Without people like this, there will be no change. Without the education that was taught to us throughout this trip, without the hands-on experience, I don't think people will understand the importance of the preservation of these landscapes and all the species within them. So this experience was truly life-changing.